Coming to Terms with Grief by Michelle Atwood. One of the few certainties in life is that we will all face death, our own or the loss of those we love. Grief is a deeply personal journey, and while no two people experience it in exactly the same way, there are common stages many of us move through. These can include denial or disbelief that the person is truly gone, anger over their absence, and painful thoughts like, if I'd only called or if I'd done something differently. We may try to avoid the pain by pushing it away, telling ourselves that we don't think about it, it isn't real. There can also be moments of hopelessness, questioning how to go on without them. These responses are all part of the grieving process, unfolding in their own time and in their own way for each of us. Grief should not be mistaken for depression, though it can sometimes lead to it. Grief is not just the loss of a person, it's the loss of the future you imagine with them, the shared moments, the unspoken plans, and the time you thought you still had together. Everyone experiences grief in their own way, but the one thing remains true: the depth of your grief often reflects the depth of your love. The stronger the bond, the more profound the sense of loss. Places once filled with joy, spots you visited together, memories you shared can now stir waves of sadness simply because they remind you of what once was. There are studies that show that grief can trigger a pain response that can cause us to feel aches and pains, so we may feel like our hearts are actually breaking. We can be holding on to painful memories of moments around the bedside of the person or the last time that you spoke. The yearning to be with them can become intense. It's often said that the impact of grief is closely tied up to the depth of the relationship we had with the person. For example, the passing of a familiar stranger, someone you might see in the street every day, may stir up a moment of reflection, but it's unlikely to carry the same weight as losing a loved one with whom you shared meaningful memories, connections, and emotional closeness. There are different types of brain cells or neurons, each with specialised roles. Some of these neurons are involved in spatial awareness and memory. For example, place cells help map specific locations, like identifying your bedroom or where your bed is. Proximity cells can help you based on nearby surroundings, such as instinctively knowing where the bathroom is, even in the dark. Then there are trace cells, which become active when we expect something to be in a specific place, and it's not. These neurons fire in response to the absence of something, making them particularly relevant to our experience of loss. They signal when something familiar is missing, helping explain why certain spaces or routines can feel so emotionally charged after losing something important. Grieving in many ways is a form of learning, a painful process of adapting to life without someone who once shaped your world. It's about carving out a new future, one that no longer includes them, and doing so in your own time, at your own pace. It requires you to gradually come to terms with the reality of the absence, to hold on to the memory of who they were and accept the truth that they're no longer physically here. Grief can crash over you without warning, a sudden surge of sorrow, reminding you that a journey isn't something you simply get over. Instead, you learn to move through it, piecing together a new life where you can no longer reach out to them, even if your heart still longs for their presence. When good news comes, the urge to share collides with this dark awareness of a void that no one else can fill. You know they're gone, yet those moments you would have shared, the laughter, the milestones, the everyday exchanges that trigger those unexpected waves of sadness again and again. My first experience with death was the passing of my great-grandmother. I don't remember exactly how old I was, perhaps around 7, but I vividly recall the moment. My grandmother, who I called Nanny, gently asked if I wanted to say goodbye. I was confused. I'd been told she was dead, and I didn't fully understand what saying goodbye meant in that context. Still, I said yes. What followed was my first encounter with a lifeless body. Nanny took my hand and placed it on her mother's, my great-grandmother's, hand. It was a quiet, surreal moment, one that has stayed with me for a long time. Even though I was too young to grasp the full meaning of death, something about that goodbye left a lasting impression. Anyone who knows me knows that my mum was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, a disease that stole her from us bit by bit, yet somehow drew me closer to both my parents. Living under its shadow created a long, slow ache of grief. My mind understood that day would come when Mum would be gone. But when it finally arrived, the shock was still profound. In other losses, when the death has come suddenly, I've at least been grateful for the chance to say goodbye. Being there for a loved one's final breath, whispering how much you love them and how thankful you are, can soften the path to acceptance, though it never erases the bond. I remember having that feeling that they'd be home soon. It was so familiar, so deeply ingrained because I was so used to them being away and returning. But then came the harsh jolt of reality. The wave of emotion was overwhelming. While I could accept that they were gone, what was harder was adjusting to my daily routines and life patterns that had always included them. It wasn't just the person I lost, it was a time that we were meant to share, the future moments that would never come. The absence of my parents consumed my attention. The time we were once shared, the moments we would carve out for each other were suddenly gone. What followed was the painful first without them. The first Christmas, the first Mother's Day, the first Father's Day, each one with a sharp reminder of their absence. I once heard a metaphor for grief. Imagine a stone inside a matchbox. In the beginning, the stone fills the entire space. There's no room for anything else. Over time, the stone doesn't shrink, but the world around it grows. The grief remains, but life slowly expands to hold more than just the pain. As a young child, I remember hearing the story about a couple who lived on a hill. They were granted one wish as a reward for something they had done, and they chose to use it to wish that they would die together. For reasons I couldn't fully understand at the time, the story stayed with me throughout my life. In 2020, that story took a new meaning. Sorry. Sorry. In 2020, that story took a new meaning for my family. That year, my mum and dad both passed away, each from separate physical health conditions. Yet within a short time of each other. Though it wasn't the result of a wish, their passing felt deeply connected, almost as if the unseen thread that had tied their journeys together had been there to the very end. What was once a childhood tale became a quite heartbreaking reality. Now in the quiet after their passing, I find myself reaching for them in small ways, thinking Mum would love this or Dad would know the answer. That's the space grief leaves behind. The gap you slowly learn to live around. On the day of my parents' funeral, held under COVID restrictions with only my immediate family present, I sat alone in the garden trying to absorb the weight of what had gone on. A memorandum of starlings rippled across the sky. Two birds trailed behind the flock, and I chose to believe that they were Mum and Dad, trusting they're still out there somewhere makes the loss even easier to bear, because accepting their absence all at once would hurt far too much. Never be disappointed in yourself for grieving. It's a reflection of how deeply you loved and how close you were, and the support that the relationship brought into your life. You don't simply get over grief, you learn to move through it day by day. Grieving isn't just about emotionally letting go of the person. It's about facing the painful task of removing them from your physical world. Clearing out a loved one's home, sorting through belongings, each item tethered to a memory. It's a quiet heartbreak. The worn slippers by the front door waiting for someone who will never return. The faint fingerprints on the bathroom door, glowing in the sunlight. These small traces are part of the grieving process too. Sorry. Letting go of these things can feel like losing them all over again. And when something precious breaks, it can feel like a piece of your history shattering with it. This too is grief, and it's okay to feel the weight of it. I once came across a piece of advice that stayed with me. It helped me shift the way I move through my grief. Every February I felt an overwhelming sense of dread creeping in. It was the time of year my parents passed, and my mind would become consumed with flashbacks from that painful week. I withdrew, feeling the need to be alone with my sorrow. But then I heard something that changed my perspective. Why let that one week overshadow a lifetime of love? Why allow those final traumatic moments to erase those years filled with joy, laughter and beautiful memories? That one thought helped me to begin to reclaim their legacy, not defined by how they left, but how they lived and how they loved. Now, when that time of year approaches, I try to hold on to the light they brought into my life rather than the darkness of those final days it took away. Throughout my journey of healing, I've come to truly understand and appreciate the saying, yesterday is in the past and cannot be changed. Today is for living and tomorrow is never guaranteed. The past holds memories we cannot rewrite. What is done. The future remains uncertain, not only for ourselves, but for those we love. That leaves us with today, a precious opportunity to be present, to find meaning in the small moments and to fill our days with kindness and connection and joy. If there are people you care about, people you may have drifted from or unresolved feelings towards, don't let pride or regret stand in the way. Apologise, forgive and reconnect. Life is far too fragile to carry the weight of grudges when love still lives in your heart, when you still hold the power to make things right. Well, there's still time. Thank you, and sorry for crying.